This is Pamela Kuhn, and the curtain is up on Center Stage, the show about the arts and the artists behind their work. I'm going to start this interview today by quoting the legendary British conductor, Sir Simon Rattle. He says, "Orchestras are like people. They are the sonic embodiment of their community." I have reported on several orchestras on Center Stage, and I have watched with ardent curiosity how one orchestra, who was totally dedicated to community, grew beyond Sir Simon's words. They were the dependable Fairfield County Orchestra, who became profound over the last 8 seasons with the guidance of CEO and President Russell Jones. I am speaking of the Stamford Symphony, who have been active since 1919 with some brief pauses, who are now recognized as Orchestra Lumos, the Orchestra of Light. And indeed, she shines brighter and more focused as she enters the coming years thanks to the efforts of the man with vision, who worked to establish a new brand, hire a great conductor, provide a new kind of mentorship to the community, and develop a solid endowment fund. Russell Jones took on the task of preserving the life of the orchestra through modernization and inspiration, while also developing the orchestra's financial future strength. But Russell is now stepping down as the CEO of Orchestra Lumos, and Walker Beard, formerly of Dallas Opera, has stepped in to fill the big shoes left behind by his predecessor. I have Russell Jones with me today. He is a man who I have always enjoyed speaking with. I love his social media posts, which show his love of real life and enjoyment, both informative and fun. And I adore his dedication to his home country, the UK, and his ardent love of travel. Russell, welcome to Center Stage. You are a man who welcomes a good pint at the pub. But to quote a recent story about you, I'm gonna quote, "Your self-proclaimed superpower is evangelizing about the sublime pleasures of a live symphony." I love that. Where's the cape, Russell?
Well, I'm not sure I could take all that wonderful introduction. That's very, very kind and generous of you. It's been a complete ball the last 8 years. I was given this wonderful toy, and we've had an awful lot of fun.
You have.
I think we've moved the needle in lots of ways. There's more to be done, but I think we're very proud of what we've achieved in the last 8 years. And I think we're in a very good place for Walker, who is terrific, by the way. I could not be happier with his appointment. We're getting on incredibly well. We're looking forward to working with each other. And I know he's going to build on everything that we've established and take us on to greater heights. And that's what you want from
That's exactly what you want.
I want him to take us forwards.
And everything that you've established, Rachel, especially financially for this orchestra, and of course that very courageous brand launch, that was really something. Right around COVID, I mean, really, you have been very clever in establishing a whole new perspective around the Stamford Symphony.
Well, look, I think the important thing to note is that orchestras are around a lot longer than the people in them. And that goes for a lot of arts organizations. We're all merely custodians of these organizations, and if we're lucky, we get them for 5, 10, 15 years. The musicians are really, really custodians of the orchestra, because many of them serve for decades, and certainly an awful lot of our musicians go way back to the 80s when we became professional and left the high school, went to the Palace, became a part of the union scene in New York, and so on. But even chief execs are custodians. I feel I have been a custodian for 8 years, and everything I've tried to do is to ensure that I hand the organization on in better shape than I found it, and that it's sustainable to be here in 25 years' time, and for Fairfield County to have the orchestra it deserves, and that it will be here still making good music, because that's a concern across the country. I fear there may not be as many orchestras as there are now in a generation's time. That's to do with education. That's to do with the way people listen to music. It's the dominance of the internet and screens and so on. So I think we've got to be very vigilant. And everything I have done, including the rebrand, was all about sustainability and that Orchestra Lumos will still be here in 25 years' time.
You know, it's interesting how you speak about the way people are listening to music right now. It's such a good point. Sometimes that seems to wash over all our heads, really, especially for young people who don't have a history of growing up attending orchestral or theatrical performances just down the road. Um, how have you tried to deal with that specifically with Orchestra Lumos?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I told this story the other day at my last concert in charge. I was 10 years old. I went to the library and got a paper ticket for the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, and who had come into our local movie house. And I said to my parents, somebody's got to drive me on Sunday evening at 8 o'clock to hear the Royal Philharmonic. And I can still remember that physical and oral sensation of hearing, an 80-piece orchestra for the first time. And really, the last 8 years, everything I've tried to do is to encourage people to try it for the first time. And the good news is, the program, the basic product, Beethoven isn't the problem. People come and hear an orchestra and they hear Lumos and they go, wow, we had no idea. Very, very rarely, if ever, do people say, yeah, well, thanks very much. That was okay, but not
Yeah,
really for me.
yeah.
They're astonished. And we need more opportunities like that. Our whole community engagement program in the last 8 years has been about bringing new people to hear the orchestra, taking our amazing musicians to other places across the county, from Rye to Bridgeport. We're out there taking music to communities and introducing things like our movie. Last 2 years, and we're doing Fantasia on the 1st of February next year, to bring something like 60% of people in that audience have never been to hear Orchestra Lumos before. They've never been inside the palace before. And that, to me, is an absolute demonstration that it very much depends on how people want to get their fix of the orchestra.
Yeah.
And I don't mind if they come and hear Beethoven, they hear one of our small space concerts in a library in the Westport Library, they come and hear the movie, and they hear the soundtrack live, they see an orchestra for the first time, and yes, they're seeing the movie on the big screen, but or they come and see two of our guys at the Half Full Brewery with a pint in their hand. It doesn't matter how they get their fix of the orchestra as long as they're coming. And I think one of the things we've tried to do is to expand what our amazing musicians can do. And you're quoting Simon and me, I'll quote Boulez at you. Boulez said, an orchestra is an ensemble of possibilities.
Oh,
And I think we've
I love.
really proved that in the last 8 years. Sure, the core thing that we do is 80 of us on stage playing the great classical repertoire. Absolutely. But we can do so many other things as well. And not everybody wants to hear the classical repertoire, but they want to hear an orchestra, and we bring them in. And I think that's really important. And the business needs more of that versatility.
Oh, that's fantastic. And how has Stamford, Connecticut responded to you over the last 8 years with all of your ideas, your innovations, your small space concerts, taking it to breweries, as you say? Have they been supportive? Supportive.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, we still struggle with ticket sales. I mean, we're not quite back to where we were pre-pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
but we
Yeah.
are, as I say, in more communities. We are certainly playing to some people who never came before the pandemic. The small space concerts, the community engagement concerts, the education things we do, the movie, uh, just taking our musicians into Stamford Hospital and playing at the bedside for people who are really sick. Um, that's one of the reasons last year we had Connecticut Orchestra Month when we teamed up with all our colleagues in Fairfield County, because one of the things we all recognize is that we are too invisible to too many people in our community.
Interesting.
And people do have a sort of tunnel vision about orchestras are musicians in penguin suits playing classical music by dead German composers. And, that's the cliche, but it's not true.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much broader than that. And I think the community has really embraced what we try to do. There is more that can be done, but we've added $1 million to our budget to be able to do that. We've had an incredible leader in Michael Stern, who's embraced all this change and frankly generated a lot of it by having somebody of his caliber in Fairfield County working with our guys. And yeah, I think the base now is very solid, and I predict that Walker will come in and build that, will grow the audience quickly now with his new ideas. And that is half the reason I'm stepping down, because after 8 years, the organization needs fresh legs on the field. And I think it's time for new ideas to come in, build on what I've done, and see where it takes us. And I've maybe got some other things in me yet to do, and maybe working a few days a week rather than 8 days a week will be welcome change for me.
And you
But the
will,
important thing is we're bringing new energy to the
right,
role,
okay.
and that's very important.
Understood, understood. Is that about the shelf life in arts management, really? About, the 8 to 10 year mark with a group? Do you
Warren
feel?
Warren Buffett Warren Buffett said after 8 years, CEOs become a bit risk averse and
Yeah,
are less likely to take risks. I know what he means. I mean, look, we've got some wonderful people in the industry who have run organizations a lot longer than that. So I don't know that you can say that 8 years is hard and fast, but you know, if that's a term limit, I don't think it's bad. And maybe we need more term limits in some places. But
maybe, maybe.
I think it's no, it's a personal decision. I felt it was right for me,
Yeah, okay.
and um, yeah, I mean, people were kind enough to say they were sorry that I was leaving, and please could I stay a bit longer? And I think it's absolutely spot on.
Well, your instincts have been fine up to this point, so I would trust that. And you will certainly be a consultant for the orchestra going forward.
Yes, I've said it was wholly the call of the new chief exec, obviously. But we are getting on incredibly well. Look, we're about to see the biggest transfer in wealth we've ever seen.
Interesting.
Trillions of dollars are about to transfer from one generation, the boomers, to the next generations. And honestly, one of the things we haven't done enough in the last 8 years is getting the orchestra into people's estate plans, getting them in their will, and so on. And if all those trillions are changing hands, I want to remind people, you've enjoyed the orchestra for so many years. Now you can love it forever by making a gift in your will, painless gift in your will,
That's right.
uh, that will go into our endowment and will support the orchestra in perpetuity. That's a wonderful, wonderful way to support the institution that you've loved for so long. And I mean, the trouble with development departments is we're always running to make this year's money, to lower the deficit or make sure we end up in the black. The thing that always falls off our desks is sitting down with people and having the whole plan giving discussion.
Hmm.
So this is the job I used to do at the New York Philharmonic, and what I want to do for the new team a day a week or so from March is really head up the plan giving operation. It's a nice ring-fenced job that I can do. And once you get a pipeline of those gifts coming, it's a wonderful, wonderful source of eternal income that will help the institution for a very long time. We've just brought in a very significant gift, which we'll be announcing in January. Uh,
Wow.
a very significant gift that is going to make a difference. And I hope that's the first of many that we'll bring in the next year or two.
Bravo to you. This is fantastic. Because the way I see it, I mean, Russell, in the years we've spoken and how I've seen the orchestra develop, and certainly you have taken risks. There is no question. I mean, it seems to me you kind of came in with a gusto that was necessary for the moment. Um, and then you faced COVID. I mean, and you made this work through COVID. I don't know. Every idea you've had has just been golden. In the face of some of the orchestras I've spoken to, who've really been suffering, you guys have seemed to just get stronger and stronger, but with taking risks. Am I right?
Well,
A new brand launch. I
risk is a
mean,
strong word. I mean, look, not everything worked, and not everything worked. We tried to. I thought the Messiah was going to be something that would build like it does and become an institution like it is.
mhm,
There are always 5 performances every December at the New York Phil of the Messiah, and it's sold out and is fantastic. That didn't work up here. We killed that off sadly because it didn't work. That didn't work. The holiday season's been tricky. We've tried a couple of holiday shows and things at Christmas. There's an awful lot going on in Stamford and Fairfield County in December, and I think the marketplace was too crowded. And
mm,
but look, I'm saying to Walker, give yourself the right to fail, experiment,
hmm,
slaughter any sacred cows. This is an industry that, frankly, has been slow at adopting change. While I said the product isn't the problem, Beethoven isn't the problem, we have been very slow at changing the way in which we present those great masters. Brahms could come back tomorrow to an Orchestra Lumos concert and not be terribly fazed by what he saw and heard.
mhm, mhm.
It's still too much of a 19th century presentation, and sometimes I think that's a reason to celebrate, and sometimes I think that's an absolute disaster
Yeah,
that Brahms could come back and be comfortable. And what have we not done
interesting.
to bring our art form? Can you imagine saying that of a museum or a gallery, and which are so hands-on now, and the dusty old cases with stuffed birds inside that I remember as a kid. That's not museums and galleries today. It's a lot more interactive and a lot more fun. Now, we've got people to take care of. We're not inanimate like museums and galleries. We have human beings that make the music incredibly, and we have to take care of them. And our art form is not an easy soundbite art form. If you really want to listen to a Sibelius symphony properly, you've got to sit down and concentrate for 40 minutes and listen.
Yeah. Hmm.
And that's not a skill. That's a skill that's disappearing, frankly, especially with younger people who want it now and fast and short.
The attention
And
span. Yeah. Hmm.
this is a concern. So we've got to find other ways
Hmm.
to encourage people to come and listen, turn the phone off for 40 minutes. Because when they do, I think they're going to, well, I know when they do, it's a revelation and people
It
are
is.
astonished.
It is
Yeah.
joyous. It
Yeah.
washes over them with another sense of a profound nature. There's no question. How much fun have you had during the last year?
Look, my first job when I was 21 was with the Royal Liverpool Philharmonic Orchestra. I was the orchestra personnel manager, and I had a fairy tale entry into the business when I was so young. And 8 years ago, when I was very happy at the New York Philharmonic, the Stamford Symphony then job jumped into the top of my inbox.
Hmm.
And I thought, look, I've been doing this for 40 something years. I ought to, nearly 40 years then, I ought to see if I can run an orchestra before I keel over. And it was just up the road from Stamford and close to New York and so on. So it was a no-brainer. I thought, yeah, I'm going to try this. And I'm so glad I did, because having been associated with orchestras my whole career, to now actually have the responsibility to be a custodian and
Hmm.
to have a leadership role in running the orchestra here is a challenge. Uh, I won't pretend to say I'm not going to miss the nights when you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and think, where is that money coming from this year? How are we going to raise that? How do I deal with that problem? It's relentless. It is an 8-day-a-week job. I think I had 2 Christmas days when I didn't look at emails. Um, that's me more than anything. But
Hmm.
it has been enormous fun. I mean, I love our musicians. They are so creative. They're so interesting. Of course, they're amazing at 7:30 every time we start a concert. Uh, Professional musicians are unique. They are extraordinary in what they can do. Michael Stern has been such a friend and partner. I've learned so much from him. And the relationships and friendships I've built with our board members, our
Hmm.
subscribers, our donors. I mean, these, I may not be chief exec from January the 5th onwards, but I will be coming to concerts. There's so much music I want to hear. I've got friends here now who aren't going to disappear from my life just because I'm not doing this job anymore.
Right.
I still have friends at the New York Phil, and that's really important. And as I say, it's been a great challenge. Uh, I'm just glad everybody came with me and
On the
and
ride.
let
Yeah,
me play with this beautiful toy as much as we did. And oh yes, I wouldn't have missed this for the world.
I can see that.
It's
I
been
can,
huge. It really
I,
has been wonderful. Yeah.
I can see that. Well, I want to go back a little bit because you speak about being 10 years old and here you have your little paper ticket and you're saying to mom and dad, you've got to get me off to the Royal Philharmonic. I remember talking to Paul Lewis, the great British pianist. He had a similar story when he would toddle on down to the library and listen to Alfred Brendel recordings.
Mhm.
You know, you never
Yeah.
know the moments of greatness that are right in front of you. So, were you a musician already at that point, at 10 years old?
Yes, I was having piano lessons. My grandfather was one of those great musicians who could, he wasn't a musician, but he could play the piano more or less from ear, by ear. And he could listen to a tune on the radio, and within a few minutes he could play it on the piano. So I grew up with that from a
Okay.
baby onwards. And I was tapping the piano, the dining room table, and eventually my parents got me piano lessons. I knew pretty quickly, and then I played the violin and I sang in choirs and so on. I knew pretty quickly I was never really going to be accomplished enough to be a
Okay.
professional musician. And my lucky break really was to go to a university that didn't have a music faculty. You could do everything but read a degree in music.
Oh,
But it did have a thriving music society, and we did have a one member of staff was the music director, but the student union music society uh, did all the work. We advertised the concerts. We had an amateur orchestra, a choir, a chamber choir. We did an opera. We did the Gilbert and Sullivan. But we had to put the chairs out. We had to sell the tickets. We had to put the posters up. Uh, the music director came and conducted the concerts and so on. But this was Harry Newstone, who was in retirement at that time, but he'd conducted on both sides of the pond. He was also a formidable administrator. And for 3 years, he taught me a lot about arts admin,
wow.
enough to be able to apply to the Liverpool Phil and get that job ridiculously on my 21st birthday. The Liverpool Phil hired me.
Russell,
Um,
that's incredible.
yeah, I mean, it was completely fairy tale. And the those 3 years when I should have been reading my degree in British and American politics and history, I was more often than not organizing the next concert and uh, putting the posters up and good knows. But I knew that's where I wanted to go. And I
Okay.
knew I had a flair for the admin side of it rather than um, the musical side. Um, and we had a project music collaboration a couple of years ago, and we had the Dali string quartet with us, and they said, "Oh, come on, you play the violin." And they pulled one out of the cupboard for me, and I'm sitting at the back of the project music orchestra, and I think we're doing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star or something. And at the end of it, this little 5-year-old girl who was sitting next to me, she said, "You made a mistake in that bar," and she was absolutely right. I did, and there were photographs of me on Facebook, and the orchestra said, "Oh, good good position, wrist, good wrist, good bow arm,
Okay.
looks very good. I said, yes, it's a still photograph. It's not a video. You didn't hear me play. I knew where my calling was, and it was not on stage, it was backstage.
So were your parents thrilled? I mean, there's always this thing of parents wanting their child to take on a job that, will prove fruitful and leave you solvent. Were they supportive?
Eventually, I'm not sure they were originally. What was this arts administration thing? Can you make a living from it? Um, but no, I think they were here last year for our Yo-Yo Ma gala last May,
Wonderful.
and yeah, I think they're proud of me, and uh, it's you can make a living out of it, and
Right.
I would encourage anybody to get into this field because we're going to need great leaders. We're going to need more and more great fundraisers. That continues to be a challenge as those older generations move on. That's where the tickets are coming from. That's where the donations are coming from.
Okay.
We're going to have to be smarter and smarter
Okay.
as we trickle down to the under 50s, the under 40s, where there's so much to do.
You had the joy of having a great mentor there who taught you what you needed for this road. I mean, as time went on, did you find there were mentors that popped up for you along the way? Have you had that kind of gilded life?
Oh, I've been, terribly lucky with. I mean, there's one. Um, the reason I consider the reason I'm in the States is I got to know Robert Moyer, who was for 30 years or so the artistic administrator of the Pittsburgh Symphony, one of our great orchestras in the States. And I'd got him to come and speak at a conference that I was running for the Association of British Orchestras,
Hmm.
which was the job I did before I came over here in '07. And I said to him, I've got this sort of American itch and I don't know what to do. And I don't want to give up a job here, move to the States, realize I don't like it. And I've burned my boats and all that. He said, come to Pittsburgh for a summer. I take all your holiday, take some unpaid leave. I went for 3 months. And he said, you'll know at the end of 3 months whether it was just an itch that you scratched or you actually want to do this. And it was a wonderful 3 months. That's an incredible orchestra. I like Pittsburgh. And I realized, yeah, this is something I want to do. It took me, that was the summer of 2004. And by the summer of 2007, I had managed to secure a job at the League of American Orchestras, which is the national service organization for all the professional, amateur, and youth orchestras in the States. And that was wonderful, a way to come across the pond. But it was that 3 months in Pittsburgh that made that happen. Henry Fogel was running the league at the time, um, uh, the man who'd run the Chicago Symphony for 18
Wow.
years and then was chief exec of the league when I was appointed. Yeah, there are some great people out there who have supported me, mentored me, and encouraged me to do this. I had a fine career in the UK, but let me quickly tell you my story when I was 22 years old. First time on a plane, first time to the States. I'm in New York and I'm wandering towards Central Park and hundreds of people are all walking in the same direction. And I thought something's going on. So I followed them. And after a few minutes, I emerged onto the Great Lawn at Central Park. And there was the New York Philharmonic setting up for one of their iconic Parks concerts. I
Right.
thought, great, I'm going to hear the New York Phil. So I found myself a patch of grass because I wasn't prepared. I didn't know this was happening. And I sat down ready to listen to the concert. And within 2 or 3 minutes, somebody said to me, oh, are you on your own? Would you like to join us for a glass of wine? And I knew I like this town. I like these people. Um, I like America. Uh, and little did I know, uh, 25 years later or whatever, I'd be here.
Isn't that
So
something?
I'm a bit of a believer in fate. I think things are meant to happen. And yeah, it was. I was sort of meant to go to a university that didn't have a music faculty because I wouldn't have got a look in otherwise.
Exactly. And it gave you
And
another skill set entirely. You were paving
yeah,
the way for this position or this life work. This is so exciting for anyone listening, who is looking for that mentor moment. Sometimes we just have to make the first step, don't we, Russell? I
we
mean,
do.
it's
I mean,
so important.
while I was still in the UK, I used to go back to my university for their careers fair annually, and I'd have my little table and I'd talk about arts administration careers. And maybe I saw about 10 people during the day, and the accountancy firms saw, 500 people. But you've got to pay it back. And people
Mhm.
had been very good to me when I was searching for a job as I was graduating. And absolutely, I mean, I've had a career full of experience now, and it's my responsibility to pass that on and help anybody coming up behind me.
Yeah,
So that's essential, and that's rather a good thing about this industry. Everybody is there to help you. Nobody ever said, "I'm too busy to see you," or "Nothing I can tell you," or whatever.
that's really good to know.
And I think we all have a responsibility to do that.
Yeah, yeah, it's equitable. It's really good to know that and put it out there. Russell, I mean, I think you should be patting yourself on the back for indeed a life well lived like this. My God, I love this. Just tell me, honestly, what do you miss about the UK?
Well, friends and family, of course.
Of
I
course.
I go back as often as I can. I have parents who are very active, but they're getting up there, so I get back as often as I can. Um, I was involved in the things that happened at the City of London, the livery companies, the ward clubs. That was fascinating and
Hmm.
very historic. I was a member of the Worshipful Company of Musicians.
Yeah.
They have a big charity angle to them. I certainly miss that, and I miss the access to Europe. I mean, the
Yeah.
wonderful thing about living in London is within 2 hours you can be virtually in any capital in Europe. So I will be doing a little bit more of that this year coming,
Fantastic.
um, and a really good cup of tea, uh, which, which is quite hard to find over here unless you
We
make it
have
yourself.
we have to teach these Americans about on the boil. It has to be on the boil. And I'm
Oh my
telling
gosh,
you, Russell Jones, if I cannot have my Fortnum and Mason Royal Blend tea, with regularity, I am cranky.
I
Uh,
agree with you. I agree with you.
that is one of my luxuries I go to when I get to England. One of the first things. What has been the most profound moment for you, if you can really highlight one thing at Orchestra Lumos? Has there been a profound moment that stands out to you as a catharsis of rewarding you, actually, for all your work?
Yes, I know exactly what what to tell you. When COVID hit us, it hit us quite quickly. We were 10 days away from our next concert, and we had to cancel it, and then we very quickly canceled the next one. Um, I mean, that was a shock. I mean, suddenly
Yeah.
we were all quarantined, as it were, and so on, lockdown.
What a shock.
And
Yeah.
somebody said to me, Orchestra Lumos has to become the fourth emergency service. And
Interesting.
within 2 weeks of the lockdown, we had created, oh, we were Stamford Symphony still then, we had created the Stamford Symphony channel. And the orchestra were amazing. They contributed so much good stuff online that we put onto the channel. And then we did a number of online premieres, we called them, and we played some music we'd never normally play, socially distanced. We did that mashup of the slow movement of the Dvorak New World Symphony,
Hmm.
everybody recording their line from their living rooms and so on. A lot of orchestras did that, but I think ours is still one of the most moving that we saw at that time. And yeah, that was, I mean, of my 8 years, those 2 years where we were COVID affected were the most demanding and when I think we all work the hardest. And you've been talking about me very kindly, but it takes a village. It's teamwork.
Mm-hmm.
I've had an
Mm-hmm.
incredible board and staff here with Michael and our musicians. I mean, I'm just one person. I mean, without the music, without the rest of my amazing colleagues, nothing happens. And we absolutely jumped into the deep end to deliver turn our live orchestra into a sort of radio orchestra,
Yeah.
an online streaming orchestra. None of this we had done before. We had to blow the dust off the agreement that, what do we pay the musicians to do this and so on. Very, very quickly that happened. And I know because people told us how important that was and how I mean, our musicians made 1,000 phone calls that March when we locked down just to check in with our subscribers and donors. I hope you're okay. We're going to be putting the channel is up. Please listen. There will be concerts coming. That was
Wow.
5 years ago now. We've got short memories of how profound that was, but it was incredible.
It really,
And it was a
yeah.
real
Mm-hmm.
scary, challenging time. And we
You
took
were
care of our
so active.
musicians.
Yeah, you were incredibly active. I couldn't
Yeah.
get over it. But you're the guy that works well in a crisis. I mean, you obviously, your ideas come to the surface. I mean, I'm not trying to just praise you in this interview, but Russell, it's pretty difficult not to praise the huge decisions that you have made along the way. Just the rebrand. I remember you coming into me and saying, we're going to rebrand and rename this orchestra. It was almost like you were trying to talk me into it. And I thought, he's really spent a lot of time on this decision because it was risky, it was huge, but it was the right one. And you took it from being, as I said in the intro, to this friendly, very dependable area orchestra, of which we have many around New York City, and you made it extraordinary and you allowed it to stand out. And that right there deserves a whole lot of praise and maybe even a bonus, Russell. I hope they gave you a bonus.
Well, thank you. Look, between us, look, everybody agreed to the name change. Everybody realized the mission had changed. I
Yeah,
think we did it the right way round. We realized we wanted to be the orchestra of Fairfield County. We always had been. 50% of our audience had always come from outside Stamford. But as we started our crescendo campaign to raise $5 million,
yeah.
a lot of our donors who also came from outside Stamford said, "Yeah, Stamford's great for the palace concerts, but you never come to our library, you never come to our church, you never come
Mhm,
to our school
mhm.
district, you never come to our shopping mall at Christmas with the brass group. Um, you invest in us, we'll invest in you." So that was a no-brainer in a way. And the things we've done have been well received, appreciated. Our musicians have risen to the challenge wonderfully. And then it became obvious the mission has changed, the role has changed, the product has changed. The Stamford brand does not describe what we are anymore. So it
Correct.
had to be a name change. And the Orchestra of Fairfield County seemed a bit too boring. Um, we all thought at the time the new name would just arrive. It would somebody would wake up one morning and would go, it's got to be X.
Yeah.
It was not. It was a slog. It was very hard work. It was endless meetings. It was lists of names. We had nearly adopted one, and the orchestra rightly said that sounds like orchestra synthesis or something. I think it could have been, and that sounds too like a synthesizer,
Right.
which
Hmm.
we don't like.
Hmm.
So that got the chop. Uh, we did have some professional help to do the brand rebranding
Hmm.
as well as it
Hmm.
came out. But um, it was a team effort and really hard.
That's
But I
fantastic.
think we did it right.
You did.
The logo is, it's a sunburst, it's light, it's 360 degrees. It's visually what we're trying to do.
Yeah, it
And I
is.
and I think it's gone down very well.
It
And
it,
look,
it is
these
shiny.
brands take years to change.
That's right.
You talk to Coca-Cola about the failure of Coke Zero and Coke this, and uh, rebranding is hard, and even the big boys get it wrong. Um, and it's it's still working through. It takes years, but no, I think it worked, and it is what we do now, and that's the important thing.
You got it right. You got it right, Russell. Yeah, do you have a Michael Stern story for us?
Well, I said on stage the other day that the thing I love most about Michael is I mean, if you haven't done this before, it's hard to explain, but the joy of putting programs together. Um, I mean, in some ways, I wish I'd run a really big orchestra where you've got 30 weeks of concerts to put together. It's actually harder to program 5 concerts than it is 35.
Okay.
If we wanted to do the Sibelius cycle, well, we haven't got 7 concerts. We've only got 5. Maybe we could do the Beethoven piano concertos or something. But trying to find 5 balanced programs is tricky. And so about this time of year, a little bit earlier, getting ready for send the brochures off in January and starting to sell in February, March. This is a really intense time when we're looking at the forthcoming season. And more than one occasion, we'd get it right. We'd fix it. We'd say, job done, lovely. And then the next morning, Michael would ring up and say, actually, I've got a better idea. I think we should do this. And half of me goes, oh my God, no, we just fixed it. And then I think, no, he's right. That's a much better idea. And, maybe the pieces get thrown up in the air and you start again, but you always get to a better place. And that's so much fun when you're throwing works back and forth at each other. And then you sort of have to put it through the lens of, well, actually, that piece needs a tuba or something, but it's only 5 minutes long. And is the tuba player not going to play anything else in the whole concert? And there's expenses involved and so on. It's balancing those, that piece would be great, but it takes 100 musicians and the budget doesn't allow for that. It's not all artistic, unfortunately. There are some very strict parameters about, using all our musicians, spreading out the work, what will fit nicely on the stage. Some pieces of music are very expensive to rent and so on, the royalties and so on. So yeah, it's like playing solitaire. You move one thing and then that affects everything else and so on. So yeah, that's what I'll miss enormously. I mean, Walker's going to have so much fun doing that with Michael, and
I'm sure.
it's why we do it. I mean, everything we do is because we want to hear those concerts. I go to all the rehearsals because I just want, the 9.5 hours of listening to the orchestra before they come up here to play the concerts. And it's great following the journey of Michael and the musicians preparing a piece of music from first rehearsal to second performance on the Sunday afternoon. And it's all about the music. I mean, this is what drives me and all of us. And is transformative in not only people who love this stuff and have been coming for decades, but those people I was talking about that come and hear the orchestra for the first time. And there's always somebody in the hall that has never heard this Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. Always somebody.
Yeah.
And you've got to make sure you're communicating and delivering for them as much as somebody who knows it backwards.
And you are, Russell. You have been. You will be in the future as a consultant, and I'm sure you're going to go off and have a hell of a lot of fun too, traveling and maybe enjoying the violin a little bit more. I mean, there's space for you. I love it.
If I can find an amateur orchestra that doesn't do auditions, then maybe I'll
You're
get it
set.
out of the box and have it back of the second violins. Yeah, that's a possibility.
And just talk to me if you can about your partner and husband, Aaron Gillies. I mean, he's a great guy from the West Coast, where I am right now. I love that you've got that connection. Are you two looking forward to eventually having some time to continue your travel, getting back to Europe, the UK, loving life?
Yeah, all credit to him for helping me, keeping me sane, I say, getting me through. Uh, he's got a pretty stressful job himself, and he's in the IT industry. And you know, some days I would sort of say, "You won't believe what happened today," blah blah blah. And yeah, no, he kept my feet on the floor and kept me sane. And yeah, we are looking forward to um, spending some more time together and traveling and so on. So yeah, no, enormous thanks to him for um, and everybody up here loves him too. I mean, the musicians love him. You know, he's been my partner in crime as we've navigated these 8 years.
These
So
amazing eight
thanks to
years.
him, and he loves the music too. He loves the orchestra. So it's been a very good fit. Yeah.
You know, I love the number eight. It's the number of continuation. And I think you will be continuing to enrich our lives. And I thank you, Russell Jones, for this. Look, before you go, just something for fun. You have the chance to have dinner one night with someone who has passed from this earth. This does not have to be a celebrity, believe me. But for one night, you can have that moment to speak to somebody who's passed on, who perhaps you've always harbored an idea of speaking to at length. Who would that be
Yeah.
for you?
I know exactly who that is. That is my desert island composer, Joseph Haydn, who was a wicked old man, uh, who wrote who wrote the most incredible 104 symphonies, full of humor, surprises, ingenuity, uh, and he's also credited as the founder of the string quartet,
Yeah.
which when I was a student, I would uh, at university we would play string quartets together. Not very well, but they were fun. Yeah, obviously music was in another world then. I mean, it was, without the Esterhazy princes, he wouldn't have a job, and there wasn't a court orchestra, and all there wouldn't have been a court orchestra. But he rose above that. He was a superstar of his day, traveling to London twice, and was treated like a rock star in the salons and theatres of 18th century London. And I I just think he'd be fantastic. The range of his work. Um, we took a holiday once to Austria and just over to the Hungarian border where the Esterhazy Palace is, and
Hmm.
the palace in Eisenstadt, and he's buried in Eisenstadt. Profound trip, and yeah, his music absolutely moves me. I like the other end of the scale, Bruckner, with huge orchestras, and you could play 4 or 5 Mozart, Haydn symphonies in the time you could hear Bruckner 8.
Hmm.
But that's okay. I mean, they're two of my favorites. But yeah, no, if there was only one, dinner with Haydn with a good glass of Austrian wine, uh, I think I'd be extremely happy.
And we might find the lighter side of Haydn through that. I mean, for you, I think
Oh,
that could be fantastic.
100%, 100%.
That
Yeah.
is wonderful, Russell. Well, I've got to thank you for taking the time to talk to me, and we wish you all the best in whatever you are facing for the future. And I hope it will include a good cup of tea, my dear, and always a good pint at a great pub, and loads of travel and loads of innovative ideas for you two as a couple, and also for what you're going to do in the future for the orchestras. So I'm sure who will be stopping by to get your wonderful opinions and this fabulous knowledge you have. So thank you, and thank you for always sharing about Orchestra Lumos. And good luck. Good luck.
Pamela, thank you. And thank you for your show and for the spotlight you put on the work that many of us do. It's important to
I
share it.
try.
And thank you very, very much.
As you and I know, the arts must live, and we have to show people the behind the scenes and behind the artists. So thank you for sharing this hour with me. This has been great. Everyone, I want you to go to Orchestra Lumos and really check out what's happening with the schedules. We've got Joshua Bell and his wife Larissa Martinez coming up, which I think is very exciting. And as Walker Beard takes over, we all need your help out there to help him walk in these footsteps that Russell Jones has built for us. Russell, thanks again. And to everyone out there, I want to invite you to go to Center Stage with Pamela Kuhn on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and of course at WGCH Talk Radio in Greenwich, Connecticut. Russell, all the best. Thanks again. To all my listeners, stay safe out there. This is Pamela Kuhn, and the curtain is now down on Center Stage.